Hi.
Hello. Ray has been helping us analyze what is paganism? What makes something pagan? And what should we do if we discern something is pagan? This is page 274 of In Search of Christian Freedom. He begins, I recall that when the Watchtower Society purchased a former motion picture theater in Queens, New York, for use as an assembly hall, the theater had an Egyptian motif throughout. Over the marquee, the front of the building had large tiles depicting various Egyptian gods and goddesses, one even carrying the crux ansata, that's that ring that Egyptian gods often carry that has a cross on it. The inside contained other items, including lotus flowers, having religious connotations in Egyptian beliefs. When the Watchtower renovated the building, all these items were left unchanged. After a few years, a friend of ours from the Dominican Republic attended a Gilead school graduation there as our guest. She was struck by the pagan symbolisms and expressed her upset to me, saying that she would not have known what the meaning of these things was had she not read them in the Watchtower's own publications. She could not harmonize the strong negative statements made in the publications with this apparent tolerance. I felt obliged to write to President Noor, pointing out that my concern was primarily for her and others who might feel as she did. Noor came down to my office and argued the matter, saying that the items were simply decorations and that, for example, he didn't think persons looking at the lotuses would attribute a sexual connotation to them. He asked
if I thought that we could not even make use of a Catholic translation because it might have a cross on its front. I told him that I myself was not hypersensitive about such things, but that I thought we had an obligation to be concerned if there is an adverse effect on others. And if we set forth a particular standard for others, then people have a right to expect us to live by it ourselves. Not long afterwards, the tile depictions of gods and goddesses were painted over, and the inside of the building remained essentially the same. More recently, the Watchtower purchased the large Bossert Hotel in Brooklyn. It has gargoyles ornamenting the outside. These too are viewed by the organization as inconsequential decorations, void of any serious significance. As I found true in so many cases, stringent requirements placed on witnesses of the rank and file suddenly seemed capable of great relaxation when the organization's own interests were involved.
Persons among the witnesses have been disfellowshipped for holding birthday celebrations. The core of the Watchtower argument seems to be based upon the principle of guilt by association. That because only Pharaoh and Herod are mentioned in Scripture as celebrating birthdays, and because these were wicked men, therefore the celebration of a birthday is necessarily wicked also. This is certainly a forced conclusion. If, as an illustration, the Scriptures have no reference to marriage feasts other than marriage feasts held by two pagans or non-Christians, perhaps even with some coincidental drunkenness or immorality occurring, would that make marriage feasts something wrong, unfit for Christians?
The Watchtower employs quotations about the absence of birthday celebrations by Jews or by professed Christians in early centuries. Is that really a substantial reason for taking a rigid stand? Did the Jews or the professed Christians in early centuries celebrate wedding anniversaries? Would the fact that they did not rule out our doing so today? Jehovah's Witnesses in many countries regularly do celebrate wedding anniversaries. The idea advanced that birthday celebrations are intrinsically an idolizing of the person is an unrealistic categorization. Couples who celebrate a wedding anniversary are not idolizing themselves, nor idolizing their marriage. Like so many other things, it is the way in which things are done, the spirit shown, and this can vary widely. Nowhere in the scriptures is there any indication of God's disapproval of birthday celebrations per se. They are silent in that respect. It is the case of men presuming to know God's thinking and making judgments and rulings that God himself has not made.
In all this, I am not advocating any of these celebrations. I simply believe that, viewed calmly and factually, they are matters of minor significance, never warranting the sense of superior righteousness produced by witness abstention, and certainly never justifying the policy of disfellowshippment now in force. The mere fact of knowing that something is not condemned does not make it appealing. I am basically repelled by the shallowness and commercialism of many holidays. I have negative feelings about the practice of having a child make a wish while blowing out candles, as is done in this country, since that fosters a superstitious view, or bringing in such fictions as Santa Claus. Yet I believe that for me to attribute such grave seriousness to these matters as though of life and death importance, and to judge others on that basis, would be to go beyond what Christian teaching authorizes.
Soundness of mind comes to my mind when I read Ray Franz. He's more
Principle oriented?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's thinking it through for himself and expecting other people to do the same.
Yeah. And so we know the dynamic in the Watchtower, of course, is that they can't really back off any of these policies after decades or even generations of teaching them for the sake of, well, credibility. But his balance, he can back off, having been disfellowshipped. He probably had these reservations for years before,
like he did.
And many would.
He's having these discussions during, when other people are concerned. So for him, even though it didn't bother him, if it bothers someone else, there is when you have to reconsider your position. So that's a more Christian attitude. People, even the whole idea is a strange one, to make a ruling on such things, because people's reasons for celebrating are that people need to have things to look forward to, things to express joy in. So with the birth of a child, people are joyful, they're happy. And the strange thing is, with Jehovah's Witnesses, it's okay to give a present to the parents of a newborn child.
Even for the child?
Yeah, you can give the child a present when he's born, but never after that date. I don't understand that. Every year that Mac's birthday come around, I'm remembering his birth. I'm remembering the joy that brought into our lives. People vary in what they do to celebrate things.
I remember.
Really, it should be left to the people.
I remember years ago you made the point about anniversaries too, that somehow even your mother who had made this point, that somehow anniversaries took on a larger role in your life because you were denied all the other stuff.
That's right. If you couldn't do all the other celebrations, it ended up kind of being a substitute for Christmas, my mother said. It was getting carried away. People in the congregation we were at were getting carried away with anniversaries. And I think she kind of felt it was a replacement for Christmas. Giving gifts to their children on their anniversaries. I think it was kind of an effort to somehow celebrate family.
Yeah, next segment, Ray goes deeper into the absolutism of Watchtower approach to legalism, to making rules that cover every situation and don't. And this is the hard part for us to deal with, being out, which is that they're not always exercised, despite the fact they're in the Watchtower. They're not always exercised in the same way, in the same locality. In other words, they have different applications for different contexts in the real world.
Yeah.
And yet in the Watchtower they remain absolutist in their approach to principle.
At least in print.
Next time.